Hello, welcome back to another pen talk. Thanks for tuning in. And as we continue our journey of exploring these amazing fountain pens that are available to us from China, I have another one to offer you today. You may be familiar with the name on the box. The box is a little different. It's nice to see that change. You know, your classic barcodes and identifications and a little paper label here at the back. So the real interesting thing is to take the cover off, and that paper acts as a hinge, and we see a pen. When I saw this pen on eBay, I was just impressed with the design. It's something very much different than what we've seen before from especially Delike or any of the other Chinese pen manufacturers. I've been into wood and metal, or just wood, so this pen kind of gives me both of those aspects. Amazing spring-loaded clip here, very substantial, quite a bit of an arc there, and this kind of brushed stainless steel just has a nice look to it. As you would expect, the cap pulls off. It'd be hard to generate a method of screwing it on and off, but you could do that. And we see the nib, and as usual, I've gotten it with the bent nib. It's a somewhat small section and it's a somewhat metal section, or it is a metal section. The pen fits well in the hand, feels balanced. I mean, your fingers are pretty much locked into that one spot on the section, but if you want to hold it further up, that's easy. There's really no transition. It just kind of goes from a smooth, slightly smaller diameter metal to a larger faceted piece of wood, but both feels comfortable in the hand. It doesn't post, which is kind of, you know, they could have designed this to post. I mean, the cap will fit there, but it just falls off. And as you can hear from that, it's a substantial cap. There is a nice plastic cap liner in there. We'll put a light on there so you can see it a little bit better. But all in all, my first impressions of the pen are pretty good. Nice substantial, clip. Nice substantial sound when you put the cap back on, and it's very stable. You know, there's a slight bit of movement there, but I'm certain it will work well. And I like the little metal insert here at the back of the barrel. So that's my first impressions. We're going to play around with the pen, ink it up, and see if this bent nib performs as well as any of the other bent nibs that I have. The wood here that they've used, I like. Again, it's kind of an interesting natural material to make a pen out of, and still provide you with a nice feel and a good-looking, handsome pen. Here's a pen partially disassembled. I say partially. I haven't taken apart all of the pieces of the converter, but this silver ring unscrews very easily. Everything pulls apart. So I'm going to silicone grease everything before I put it back together again. I was able to pull out the nib and feed out of the assembly and the section fairly easily. Other Moonmens and other Delike pens, they don't pull out. Kind of the experience that some of us have had, including me with the Pen BBS pens. I have yet to figure out what the secret is or what the reasoning is behind it, but you know, I do the same approach to all of the pens, and some of them it pulls out basically with a minimal amount of effort, and other ones doesn't come apart no matter what I try to do. I've seen other people use pliers to pull out nibs, and I'm not really ready to do that. I do have those pliers, section pliers, but you know, in this one I might swap some nibs around. It takes a standard number 5, and I have some number 5 nibs which have been ground. And obviously I like the bent nibs from Delike, but it's always good to try something different. Here's comparing the two nibs. The one on the left was grinded by Mike to a left oblique. Hopefully that shows up well in the camera. I'm trying to get some good light on it. And of course the one on the right, which is now going to be on the top, is the bent nib from Delike. I think that really shows off the differences between the two nibs. From that perspective, you know, Mike has done an excellent job grinding nibs for me, and so these are going to be interesting to try. And we've already written a lot with the bent nib, so I think we're going to throw in this number 5 left oblique and see how it writes when we ink the pen up. I also wanted to show the inside of the cap. There's that really nice cap liner in there. Looks like it's like riveted to the top of the cap, so that's going to seal up that nib fairly nicely and keep it wet so you can write first time after letting it set for a while. Interesting view from this light. Here's some pens I chose to compare the Delike 2. You have your 992, you have your 78G, and you have your Lamy All-Star. Safari, they're both the same size. As you can see, the Delike is the shortest of these pens. It certainly holds up in girth from the pen size, but obviously when we uncap them and look at it from the business end, it doesn't keep that size advantage. I think it's good to compare these pens uncapped, and since this one may post or not post and the other ones do post, that certainly is going to change the length in the hand, but I think you can see how unique the design is on this Delike pen. Yeah, section is really tiny. Certainly doesn't fit into anything that most people would consider conventional by any stretch of the imagination. You know, number 5 nibs on these three here, and of course the Lamy has its own unique style nib, which we're looking at the back of it. So let's flip it around so we can see the front. So what ink to put in the Delike? Well, I've selected this one. And I'm looking at this, I'm saying, I wonder what Google Translate will do with this label, so let's take a look. Well, it's interesting. It says Gentle Ink 4 and Dog Days. Not certain if that's related to the color or not. So you may ask what this pen looks like, and I haven't found anything that looks close to it. Connor & Dosh makes a hexagonal pen, but it doesn't really share any design elements other than being hexagonal. And this clip is fairly unique. Yeah, it looks kind of like the Visconti arch, but much more stylized and certainly more modern looking. So I have to say that I'm happy with this from a design viewpoint. You know, they did all the right things. Nice secure capping, and this little end here is what fits inside that plastic cap, which we looked at inside of this metal cap. So the challenges with this pen is it's kind of small. We'll give you those dimensions. This section is relatively tiny. It's kind of even small for vintage size, maybe except for some vintage small pens. And the fact that it really doesn't functionally post, which would make it much better in the hand, but I mean, you know, you can do that. And these weights are kind of, you know, that cap is kind of heavy, so that's where it comes into play. I mean, I would probably write with this unposted, but you can see with my medium-sized hands, it just barely fits in the crock. It feels okay, though. And the way this section is done with this nice smooth taper here, you can hold this pen basically almost anywhere and it'll work fine. So the thing to keep in mind is this is not the original nib. This is the nib I replaced in here. The nib was a tight fit. It took a little bit of effort to get that in, but it got aligned well with the section, so I'm happy with how it fits, and it certainly writes well, good flow. And because of the way this nib is ground, you get some subtle natural line variation. So the horizontal lines are definitely thinner than the vertical lines, but not a great amount. This nib really doesn't have any flex to it, but I just enjoy that character and how it adds some little variations in your writing. And I like the way that it's a crisp italic, and you got to get that right angle on the paper, which is one of the challenges with all italic nibs and stub nibs also. You know, from this it looks like a dry writer, but it's just because I don't have the right angle. So if you do the right angle, it's going to be wetter. That's a good example of how that works in regards to the shape of the nib. So overall, how would I rate this pen? I'm going to give it a 6. I can't give it any higher because ergonomically as a pen, it leaves a little bit desired, and I think it'll be not a pen that everybody can use and enjoy. With the bent nib, it's going to write well, and so that's kind of keeping in mind. This dark brown ink is actually pretty nice. I'm impressed. Here's a recent pen, which either you'll see the video before or after this one. And this, I left the bent nib in it. I got both of these with bent nibs. So I just wanted to kind of show an example of it. You can see the horizontal lines are a lot thicker in this one. The vertical lines are a little bit on the thinner side, which is what you would expect with the design of this nib. And this nib is also a little wetter, but it's not as sensitive to angle, so therefore you're going to get more ink flow. This ink is a little drier. It's Rohrer & Klinger in this pen, so I just wanted to show you that example. I mean, both of these nibs I enjoy. For everyday writing, the bent nib certainly is very usable, and one I would recommend. If you want to try something different, then take a look at some of the other grinds that are available out there, but obviously that would mean replacing the nib, and hopefully that's something that you can do, pulling the one out that comes with the pen. So we've reached the end of this video, so thank you for watching. May you have many great, wonderful, exciting, invigorating, stimulating pen experiences. It's a wonderful world out there with a great variety on it, and it's just awaiting your participation. So we've reached the end. May you enjoy your day. Until the next time, bye.